Hi, Brett here, and I wanted to talk to you today about how to fret an instrument correctly. And I've entitled this Lighten Up because that really is the solution in many cases to correctly fretting an instrument. The biggest complaint that people give when they're learning to play a string fretted instrument like a banjo or a mountain dulcimer or a mandolin or a guitar is that their fingers hurt and they can't get a clear sound, and they're holding, it's like they're strangling the neck of their instrument trying to make their chords. And the biggest complaint is how it hurts and how their hands cramp. And one reason that people do that, there's a few. One is the misconception that you have to. I've heard people say that you've got to hold it really tight. You've got to press down hard. You do not have to press down hard. Right? What you need is correct finger placement, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So one of the reasons people do it, the first reason I think, is misconception, where people think you have to press down hard to get the strings to sound. Now, you do have to press with enough pressure to get a clear sound. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. The other reason people tend to hold on to their neck or strangle their neck too tight is because they're not holding their instrument properly, or they're not using a strap. And I'm not saying you have to use a strap. What I'm saying is you need to balance the instrument. Now, you can't see my lamp, but I've got this instrument sitting between my legs, which is how I usually play it. And if you notice, I've got to lean it back against me, I am not supporting the neck of this instrument. In fact, right there you go, I'm still not supporting it. I have it angled so that it sits pretty much balanced in my lap. Your hand should not be supporting this neck, trying to keep it up or in place. And a strap, if you're playing a mandolin, a guitar, other instruments, putting a strap on it will help that. But this hand should be free to move around and fret without trying to keep it in place. So what happens is, if you are trying to support the neck, all right, if you're trying to keep it up there, what's happening is your hand is doing two things, and it should only be doing one. What it should be doing is fretting, not trying to support. So what happens is, because of the awkwardness, because you're learning, what happens is these fingers get tense, they get tight, your forearm gets tight, and I've seen people where they're holding it so tight that again, they're strangling the neck. So if you balance your instrument, if you wear a strap, even on a mountain dulcimer, sometimes just because they slide around, if you have a strap on, that takes care of that, where this left hand is not focused on controlling the instrument, it's simply pushing down on the strings. So one is the misconception that you have to. Two, as I just mentioned, is the instrument is not balanced, you're not wearing a strap, you're not holding the instrument correctly. All right, so three, and this is one that is not somebody's fault in what they're doing, but if you have a poor quality instrument, sometimes you have to push the strings down hard, but the point is you should get a different instrument. And I know, there's many good instruments out there, and in all honesty, there's many not good instruments out there. I have played mountain dulcimers that it took, I had lines in my fingers, and it literally hurt to push down and be able to fret it because the action was either so high, it just was not a good quality instrument. I was teaching a guy banjo a few years back, and I gave him a C chord, which is not a hard chord to make at all. And in a month and a half, he still couldn't make it. And I started blaming myself. I thought, what am I not teaching him? What am I showing him that's wrong? And finally, after about a month and a half, I said, can I see your banjo a second? And he handed it to me, and I could not make a C chord on that particular banjo because the neck, because of the action, something was messed up on it. So it was not that person's fault. So if you're doing everything right and you still don't seem to get it, you might want to have a luthier or someone check out your instrument, and you might want to see if you just need a different instrument. So one, misconception that you have to. Two, not balancing the instrument correctly. Three, a poor quality instrument. You don't want this hand to be stressed. All right, this hand should be completely relaxed when you're fretting. Before we get into some of the solutions, another reason people tend to push down is because their finger placement is not correct. So they don't realize their finger placement is not correct. So they try to overcompensate by pushing down, thinking if they push down, it's going to fix the problem. And that's not going to fix the problem. That's only going to make your hands hurt more. You know, again, one of the biggest complaints is people's fingers hurting. And I will tell you this, the more you practice, the shorter time that your fingers will hurt. If you don't practice, your fingers, I had a guitar student where I used to work, and you know, after a year his fingers are still hurting, which tells me he goes home and he doesn't touch his instrument, and then he comes back the next weekend for his lesson and his fingers hurt. He goes home and he doesn't touch his instrument because it doesn't give your fingers a chance to get used to the strings or to toughen up a little bit. And by the way, it doesn't mean that you're going to have these big ugly calluses either. Your fingers just kind of get used to it. But I could usually tell how much somebody practices by whether their fingers are still hurting. If they come for the lesson and, you know, they're like, it's like, I could tell, I don't have to ask, you did not really practice this week, because eventually your fingers will get used to that. And the more you practice, the quicker that will go away. So I'm going to give you a couple cheat things. They're not cheat, they're just really not going to solve the problem. But to get you started, they do sell something that you could put on the tip of your finger. It's like an invisible liquid bandage. I think that's what it's called, liquid bandage. Some people do that. Some people have used super glue and just put it on their fingertip and let it dry. Don't touch it. Let it dry. Again, that's a temporary solution. It's not going to do that much. Some people, and this is not a bad idea at all, try a lighter gauge string. All right, try to find something that's not so heavy, and you'll see a big difference. That's why ukulele is great for kids. One, because it's a small instrument and they're nylon strings and they don't hurt their fingers near as much. But let's get to the solution of what you can do to learn how to lighten up the touch of your instrument. So I'm going to show you this. Actually, I'll show it to you on banjo, but I'll also show it to you on mountain dulcimer. And if you have guitar or mandolin, everything that I'm telling you is going to apply. So what I want you to do is put your finger down, no matter what you're playing, on the first string, and I guess, you know, press enough to get the sound, and then slowly start taking the pressure off. Now, it's going to get dinky, but right now I'm getting a clear sound, and I am hardly pressing at all. So try it again. Start light. Don't put anything down. Just touch the string. Slowly push down until you get a clear note. When you're playing something fast, if you're pressing hard, there's no way your fingers can fly or move over those strings. So what you want to do is start off actually very light. Start pushing down. That's clear. And again, I'm hardly pressing down at all. So you want to get the correct finger placement. Now, every instrument's going to be different, but this is close to where it would be. Right behind the fret, not on the fret, not touching the fret, not in the middle of the fret, of the actual fret space, but just a little bit behind the fret. And you want to get on your fingertips. You don't want to use the flat of your finger. You want to get on your fingertips. I was teaching students. I was teaching in a music store, and I had a lot of, the way the music store worked is they could actually go to different teachers if teachers had a space open. And I was getting a lot of acoustic guitar students or even banjo students who were taking electric guitar lessons. And all of them were coming in and they were fretting sort of like this, and they weren't doing it correctly. And I kept correcting them, saying you have to get on the tips of your fingers. And I finally went to their teacher, who was an electric guitar teacher, and I said, when they use the flat of their fingers, is that correct fingering? And he said, no, not at all. They need to be on the tips. And I kind of laughed and I said, well, all of your students are doing that, and here's why they were doing that. It wasn't the teacher's fault. It's because with an electric guitar, you don't have to press hardly at all, all right, because the electric part of it kind of makes up for it. You need to be on the tip of your finger, just like an acoustic guitar. So you want to be on the tip of your fingers and in the correct place. And if you do that and you just start, light, and then just push down. Again, you'd be amazed at how little you have to press. When you're doing chords, you have to press a little bit harder. Still not hard at all. Okay, again, guitar is probably harder than most simply because of the heavier strings. But when you're doing banjo, when you're doing mandolin, when you're doing dulcimer, you don't really have that problem because they're lighter and easier to play. So give this a try. Let me show you real quick on mountain dulcimer. So on the mountain dulcimer, I think you can see this clear enough. You want to be on the tips of your fingers. Put your finger down until you're getting that dead sound. Push down just a little bit. And again, you would not believe how absolutely light I'm pressing. If I move it back, you can hear a buzz. I'm still pressing light. Hear how it gets clear the closer I get to this fret marking, fret bar. So if you're fretting back here, you could press. I'm pressing really hard now, and I'm still buzzing. So it's the hand placement, the finger placement. You know, if you're holding down tight, that's why, sorry about that, that's why you can't, you know. I'm hardly pressing at all. So that's what I would recommend. Try lightening up your touch. Try to not have the stress and the tension in your hand. And if you do, shake your hand out, you know, relieve that tension. And then just start off lightly and try to play. And just try to mess around and try to play much, much lighter. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that truly helps you. Please like, please share, please leave a comment. Maybe you have some suggestions or some ideas. Maybe you're having some issues. Let me know if this video has helped. And look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.